Hello, welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Mike Luciano. Mike, I don't know about you, but I'm still feeling pretty good. I feel like I'm riding a high still from that preseason opener, 30-10 dominating victory over the Green Bay Packers. Jets football's back. I'm excited. How you feeling, buddy?
One of the few times I had to rewatch a preseason game because I actually missed it live. I was at a bachelor party on Saturday night.
Bad fan.
I was at a bachelor party, so yeah, go take it up with him for his scheduling. So because of that, I had to go watch it later, and I was not disappointed. You don't want to make too grandiose statements off of preseason games, but in terms of how it could have gone, I mean, everything went about as well as you could ask for.
Yeah.
The Packers had 64 yards passing. The score was meaningless that they allowed. The quarterbacks looked good. The running game looked good. The line looked good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily a predecessor to a winning season, but it's a predecessor to, I think Aaron Glenn kind of knows what he's doing coaching-wise.
And no major injuries.
Now, Sauce Gardner's dealing with some calf soreness today. Please put him in a hyperbaric chamber.
Please.
So whatever that thing Matthew Stafford is in, that like big silver futuristic clone thing that the clones from Star Wars are in, put him in that. And then week 1, take him out so we can guard DK Metcalf. But we're going to go talk about that, and we're going to go preview what's going on with the New York Giants. A lot of feisty practices back and forth and a preseason game this Saturday. So thank you guys for tuning in. You know where to find us: Apple, Google, Spotify, Overcast. We're on all the podcast platforms, and we're on YouTube. Like the stream, subscribe. Both those things really help. Just hit that little thumbs up, hit the little bell so you get notifications. It really does help us beat the algorithm gods and get us out there and help us make more good content. So, Justin, now that the pleasantries are out of the way, let's go and talk about, for the first time in a long time, a dominant Jets wire-to-wire win.
Yeah.
Now, Justin Fields did play only the one series, 3 of 4 passing, and he runs for a touchdown thanks to a very high IQ play from Isaiah Davis, acting like he was going to receive the ball, and the linebacker takes him. Fields waltzes in for the touchdown. Obviously, with Tyrod Taylor hurt, Adrian Martinez and Brady Cook played for most of the game. Martinez, I thought, looked a little bit better than Cook. 2 things really stood out for me here. And I know that some Jets fans are worried about the offensive line because they're not having the best day against the New York Giants right now. Like right here, Zachary Brenner, our O-line didn't win the day versus an elite Giants defensive line. Yeah, Armand Membu's 21 years old. Well, he's not allowed to have bad practice. He looked great in that game.
Yep.
Against Kenny Clark, locking him down. Everybody's seen that video going around. 2 things impressed me. So, number 1, the offensive line. They didn't put the starting 5 combination out there. They rotated guys a lot. That means a lot of Josh Myers. Tippmann moved around. Membu played longer than most of the starters. But every combination that they had, I mean, up front was dominant. The 2 plays that stand out for me are obviously the one that we mentioned before, which was Membu locking up Kenny Clark on his first pass protection play. He overset a couple times. I remember he just blew a block once. But, I mean, these things are going to happen with 21-year-old rookies. He still looked excellent, in my opinion, outside of that play. And then run blocking, another clip that everybody's seen going around. Braylon Allen, on one run up the middle, I mean, he ran for the first down before he even got touched.
Yeah.
You or I could have ran through that hole. The line it's going to be the determining factor this season because the Jets, I don't think, are going to be a particularly good team. But I very rarely see teams that are at the bottom of the barrel. You have 3 wins, 4 wins, and have good offensive lines. Typically, if you have a line that's that good, you end up working your way into 6, 7 wins. I remember even when the Colts were that bad, when they had Quentin Nelson coming in, they still ended up managing to win 7, 8, 9 games a year with Wentz and stuff because that line was so good.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see the line against starters. Obviously, I think the Giants are an extreme example. For as terrible of a team as they are, they have one of the best defensive lines in the league. Apparently, Abdul Carter is Lawrence Taylor, and nobody can block the guy.
Dude, he's insane. He's nuts.
It's mind-blowing, apparently, how good Abdul Carter is. So we need to see them against better competition. But for what we saw in the preseason, I mean, you can't give them anything less than like an A-. I mean, that was a flawless almost performance.
Right. And all of this is, of course, coming with the caveat of we don't want to overreact to just one preseason game. We're not sitting here and saying this is, this is how it's going to be for the rest of the season. But like you said, Mike, I don't think there's any argument that first preseason game could not have gone better for this Jets team. we've said this before on the show that if the offensive line is what we believe it will be this season, if it is what the Jets think it will be, the floor of this team is a lot higher than I think a lot of people around the league realize. It is extremely rare for a team to have a top 10 offensive line and be, for lack of a better term, dog shit. Like it is, the Jets aren't going to win 4 games this year if their offensive line is top 10 in the league. It's just not going to happen. You will win more football games unless you have Tim Boyle as your starting quarterback for the rest of the season, which, by the way, quick side note, just because that popped into my head, Mike, I don't know if you saw, I put out a tweet yesterday because, Tyrod Taylor's dealing with the knee injury. Brady Cook was banged up with the ankle. I believe he returned to practice today, but the Jets really only had like 2 healthy quarterbacks for like a few hours. And I was like, hey, jokingly, very clearly jokingly, being like, bring him home, bring back Timmy Boyle, bring him back. We want Boyle. And I maybe overestimated the deductive reasoning skills of Twitter because holy shit, I checked Twitter later that night and I was getting destroyed.
Did they not read the rest of your Twitter where it's just
right? I feel like I've been joking about Tim Boyle for years,
for 2 years
at this point. I was genuinely stunned that people took that seriously. So if you're one of those people who take it seriously, I'm sorry. I don't know, man. You just figure something out. But anyway, that made me think of that. But yeah, the offensive line, performance of the offensive line was, in my opinion, the biggest takeaway from this game. And it wasn't just the first team offensive line because we really only saw them together for one drive. Like you said, Justin Fields was out there for 4 passing plays. The running game looked good, those plays. But it was really the performance of the second and third team offensive lines that kind of was like, okay, hey, man, every offensive line unit that the Jets have thrown out there are good. Now, that could mean that the Jets have the best offensive line depth in the NFL, which I don't think is the case. Or more importantly, it means, hey, maybe the coaching staff is putting these guys in a position to succeed that is better than the last coaching staff, which is an extremely low bar to clear. But, for as much as the offensive line was improved last season and we saw the talent that they had, they were still being handcuffed. They were held back by Keith Carter and an incompetent offensive coaching staff, specifically when it came to coordinating a run game, which they just didn't have anybody that could do that. So I will say that one of the biggest winners that people are not talking about coming out of that first game, shout out new offensive line coach Steve Hyden, because that was one of my big takeaways. It's like, damn, this running game looks like a well-oiled machine. In pass protection, the Jets are picking up stunts. They're communicating along the offensive line, which were issues that they had, I mean, realistically for years, but specifically last year, it was a train wreck. Despite the talent that they had, it was awful. The Jets offensive line being as talented as it was, while still having, I think, the 31st ranked or maybe 32nd ranked rushing attack in the league, that's a mess. Like, that should not be the case. So that was one of my biggest, like, optimistic takeaways. It's like, I don't think Xavier Newman and Marquise Hayes or whoever the hell's playing with the second, third string offensive line, I don't think they're the best offensive lineman, best backup offensive lineman in the league. But I do think that, hey, this running game looks very well organized. Specifically, the Braylon Allen play that you talked about, that was such a well-designed outside zone concept. I talked about this on Twitter briefly. Like, I love Lazard being in motion on that play. I love him being in motion right at the snap so that he can seal off the edge. And then the entire, the Joe Tittman and not John Simpson, it was Josh Myers playing center, kind of shielded off the right side of that Packers defensive line. It was a very well-designed play. The Jets executed it to perfection. That, among all things from that game, is my biggest takeaway and the biggest encouraging sign coming out of it.
And then we have a Detroit fan man. Sorry, we broke Kenny Yeboah already.
I saw that. He's on season IR. Dude, I love Kenny Yeboah, man. I'm sad. That's sad.
Even though he took shots at us on Twitter that one time.
That was another thing. Again, maybe just people lose all deductive reasoning skills when they go on Twitter, because that was another one where I thought it was very clearly a joke. Like, I think I said something like, either Kenny Yeboah hates this player or he just, missed a block. And he's like, well, I don't hate this player. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously. I'm not accusing you of hating your teammate. Anyway.
Zachary Brenner, let's stay on the offense. Aryan Smith is wide receiver 2 by the end of the year, and Brandon Smith is better than Lazard.
Hey, I'm here for the Brandon Smith propaganda. You know that. I've been pushing that propaganda since last year. And as far as Aryan Smith goes, man, both of us were pretty down on that pick. Maybe I was more than you. I forget.
You were more than me.
Yeah,
I thought it was an overreach, but like I get what they're going for with him.
Yeah, I get what they were going for too. I just saw a lot of the flaws in him as a player at Georgia. But I will say this: he's come out and he played very well this summer. I don't know if it's going to translate to regular season games, but he is clearly putting in a lot of work off the field after practice. A lot of times with players like that, when there are such obvious flaws in their game, if they have the right mentality and they approach it the correct way, and the coaching, more importantly as well, is there for them to help them grow. Sometimes those flaws, I don't think they're ever going to go away, but they can be masked, they can be hidden, and they can be improved upon. And I hope that's the case with Aryan Smith. He's had a really good summer to this point.
Well, the encouraging thing too is we mentioned earlier that when he was performing well in camp, we're like, oh, Aryan Smith, let's pump the brakes, because his style of play is meant to look awesome in practices that aren't going full speed, because he's just so damn fast. It's hard to really get up on him. But I mean, you saw that play going around on Twitter today, that big jumping circus cat. I never saw Aryan Smith do that at Georgia.
No, he was not a good contested catch guy at Georgia. That was an issue in his game. He also wasn't necessarily someone, if you look at that preseason game, I think he caught 2 or 3 passes. I think he caught 2 passes. They were both like underneath chain movers, which also was not necessarily his role at Georgia. He could do it, especially this past year where he was basically their top receiver, but that wasn't necessarily a strength, and that's not why the Jets drafted him. They drafted him to be that field stretcher. But if he's able to do other things, if he's able to, hey, he can move the chains on 3rd down, run a little hitch route for 8 yards, that's going to get him on the field a lot more than just the one-trick pony that I think the Jets not envision him being, but more so expected him to be early in his career.
You know those NBA teams when they draft a center who's 7'3" from another country and he's never played, and they're still working on like basically how to teach him how to play basketball.
South Sudan, he's played basketball for 3 years.
That's basically Aryan Smith. Like we can't make somebody that fast. You can work on improving your catching. You can work on improving your route running. Like you can't improve his level of speed. So I think that's what they were going for. And again, it's super, super early, only 1 game. As Zachary Brenner says, he caught 2 passes and Martinez overthrew him. It does take some kind of skill to overthrow Aryan Smith when he's got to step on a guy going down the field. But
that was a very encouraging first.
You have to be impressed with what we've seen from him so far. I don't know if he's going to be wide receiver 2 by the end of the year, but I do think he's probably going to end up fighting for wide receiver 3 by the end of the year.
I think there is every opportunity for him to be wide receiver 2 by the end of the year. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but he does not exactly have steep competition. It's Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Brandon Smith, Xavier Gibson, Jamal Pritchard, whoever the hell, Alan Lazard, whoever's going to be in that room. It's not exactly steep competition. So I'm not saying that I expect him to be wide receiver 2, but the opportunity is going to be there. And I think he's absolutely going to have a role in this offense. At the very minimum, he's going to be a guy that they mix in to help keep defenses honest, stretch the field, put him in there on 3rd and long, or even put him in there some earlier downs just to keep the defense honest, keep those safeties back and prevent the defenses from stacking the box. Just his presence out there alone, I think, adds an element to this offense they don't really have without him.
The other thing that I liked watching, this is on the defensive side. A lot of guys are looking at the passing defense because, 64 passing yards. Mm-hmm. Jordan Love did not look particularly good when he played, although I'm going to be, my thoughts on certain quarterbacks who have defended a lot of guys to the hilt.
Yeah.
Jordan Love gets a level of praise from the media that I think is wholly unwarranted, especially because pretty much the last 2 years, the first half of the year, he's always terrible. And then the second half of the year, he picks it up. But people just forget that for half the year, he's kind of sluggish. But now he's going to throw 40 touchdowns this year because I said that. But he did not look great. Malik Willis, who looked very good last year in limited action, he didn't do anything against this defense. Sean Clifford shouldn't even have been drafted. He looked like he shouldn't have been drafted. Yeah.
Well, listen, man, welcome to the J2 Family Penitentiary.
That's where I'm getting at. I'm looking at this defensive tackle room, which we were scared to death about because Derek Nottie was likely going to be the starter. If you asked a lot of guys, early on, who's going to be the starter, probably next to Quinn Williams, probably Nottie. And now we're hearing, he might not even make the roster. He's been invisible in camp. We're like, who is it really going to be? Byron Coward, DT2?
Maybe.
Is Leonard Taylor going to be the 3rd defensive tackle? Is Jay Tufele going to be more than a camp body? Now I feel confident in Jay Tufele being more than a camp body.
I don't know if I feel confident yet.
And they had that perfect tag team where Taylor ends up stripping. I believe Love was in the game. No, Willis was in the game, right?
That was Willis, yep.
That was Willis. And then Tufele falls on the end zone. Both of them record a sack. I think Tufele had 1.5.
Yeah.
Again, it's backup offensive linemen. I get that, but I think those two in tandem showed way more than I thought they would show. And they've given me a little bit more confidence in that this room is not going to be the 32nd best in the league outside of Quinnen. Mm-hmm. I think there's a point where it could be a little bit respectable, especially because Eric Washington is their defensive line coach. Very well-respected guy, been a coordinator for a long time. Steve Wilkes has some backgrounds in defensive line play as well. I'm more excited about this unit than I thought I would be after that game.
the goal for the Jets this season should be to become greater than the sum of their parts. That's something that we have not really seen from this Jets team in a while. I mean, you could point to the defense maybe in the last few years, like Robert Saleh and that defensive staff kind of finding diamonds in the rough. Guys like Quincy Williams, John Franklin Myers, whoever, who, were kind of cast-offs from former teams and were brought in. I mean, even not that DJ Reed was a cast-off, but he had like 1 year of very good production, and then the Jets gave him big money, and he more than lived up to it. I think he exceeded that contract. Jamian Sherwood, 5th-round pick. Tony Adams was an undrafted player. There's so many instances of the Jets doing it on defense, and I do think they have the potential to do that this year. I want to see it as well with the offense. Like, I know it's kind of going different from what you just said right there, but I want to see guys like Tyler Johnson, like Aryan Smith, where you're kind of just an early heat check from this regime and saying, hey, look, we know this guy's flawed. We know this guy may not be held in the same regard as other players, but we could turn them into contributors for our team. And I think you're seeing that as well with the defensive side of the ball now with a guy like a J2 Fele, or, even with like a Leonard Taylor, who is someone that they inherited from the previous regime, someone like Jamin Davis, who we'll talk more about when we get to the 53-man roster predictions, talking about the linebackers. I think that's the goal of this first year. Like, they don't have the talent to be true contenders this season, but if we see, J2 Fele have a career year, we see Tyler Johnson have a career year, we see Jamin Davis have career years, we see all these cast-offs, come in and perform above expectations with the Jets, that'll be a very encouraging sign for this coaching staff moving forward. That doesn't mean that J2 Fele is going to be a long-term piece of this defense. And it doesn't mean that when the Jets are finally good, Jamin Davis is going to be one of their starting linebackers. But it would tell us a lot about this coaching staff and their ability to find diamonds in the rough and develop players. So if someone like J2 Fele, again, my expectations are still curbed because it's one preseason game. I don't want to, there's 3 to 4 years of tape of this guy just being a Jag. He's just a dude. Like, I don't know if when the Jets signed him, if there was a more Jag player than J2 Fele, where I'm like, this guy just exists. He's not a particularly amazing athlete.
NPC player.
Literally an NPC, like not particularly amazing athlete, not a particularly strong pass rusher, struggles in run defense. What does he do? I don't know. Based on that first game, hell, man. I mean, he had 3 pressures in that game and on 11 pass rush snaps. Last year alone, he had 4 total pressures, Mike, in like 120 pass rush snaps.
He's the evolved form of Lecky Fodu.
Yeah, yes.
He's going to start, by the way, this year, I think, for the Raiders.
Are you serious? Jesus Christ.
Well, because he was going to be the backup, and then the whole Christian Wilkins thing happened.
Right. That's nuts that he's going to start. But yeah, that's it. And so when people didn't expect this from Tufele, it's not like, there was nothing that would indicate that he was going to do this. Last year, 4 pressures on like 100 and something pass rush snaps. This game, 3 pressures on 11 pass rush snaps. And one of them, Mike, that half sack that he had that he split with Braden McGregor, that was a lot more like the full sack he had was kind of a cleanup sack. That half sack, dude, he bent around the edge. He stunted it and went after the right tackle and beat him around the edge with bend. J2 Fele doing, like, imagine showing that to a Bengals fan. That's like showing a Jets fan and being like Lecky Fotu doing that. Or
Al Woods.
Or Jalen Holmes or whoever, or one of the Bruce Hector. And it's like, I didn't know. I was not familiar with your game. I didn't know you had that in your bag. I'm sorry for disrespecting.
Bruce Hector, by the way, signed with Robert Saleh in San Francisco.
That he did.
Brian Sternbeck, my theory for the Packers' poor performance was that their new defensive analyst, Nate Hackett, overslept watching Austin Powers and forgot that Javon Kinlaw and Hassan Reddick left in free agency.
Oh, my God.
I love how he put Matt LaFleur hiring his buddies again. He put Saleh as an offensive analyst and then Hackett as the defensive analyst.
I didn't realize his official title was defensive analyst. That's so funny. I didn't realize that.
You already ruined one side of the ball. No one will give him offensive jobs. Let me try defensive jobs. Maybe
that's actually, I mean, obviously I get the thought process there, but the optics of that are really funny.
It worked for Raheem Morris. He did offense and defense.
True.
Yeah. And I remember for a while, one of the things that helped Andy Reid get fired was this. I think might have been after Jim Johnson. Mm-hmm. He named their offensive line coach the defensive coordinator. And yeah, I think that was like at the end of Philly, Andy Reid.
It's like Matt Patricia being offensive coordinators with Joe Judge.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I was happy watching that because it's Patriots misery, but like as a football fan, I'm like, this can't be happening.
Yeah.
This can't be happening. I find it funny too that LaFleur, not only has he hired Saleh and Nate Hackett, but Luke Getsy is also back in an offensive analyst role.
He's an offensive. Wow.
Just hire, bring them all, get the band back together.
I mean, look, if you're a successful
without Rodgers, which is the reason the band was successful.
If you're a successful NFL head coach like LaFleur is, why why not just bring in your buddies, right? What's the harm of giving Hackett a paycheck, right? He's not. I mean, well, maybe he's going to ruin the defense. I don't know. But
Yeah, that is the harm. That's exactly the harm of
I
getting
don't
Hackett a
think
paycheck.
I don't think Nate Hackett and Luke Getsy have significant roles in the coaching staff. I don't think that's a hot take, and I feel like if we were in those coaching meetings, we would realize.
You say that now, but Hackett lives forever. You know this.
That's true. They're going to bring back Tim Boyle soon. They're going to bring Tim Boyle. You know what? They're going to hire Tim Boyle as like an assistant quarterbacks coach, and I will respect that so much.
They should have done that 4 years ago.
Right. I would have no issue with teams doing that. Like, it's just wasting a roster spot on him is just crazy. But anyway,
it's like Udonis Haslam, but not cool. Zachary Berner, do we have something in Tanner Engstrand?
That's another positive takeaway we can have from that first game.
You don't want to say, I don't want to say that yet, because again, one thing about the preseason is coordinators don't want to show their full toolbox yet.
Of course.
Because it's the preseason. You don't want that on tape, in a game that doesn't mean anything. And Engstrand, I don't think, is going to be able to. I mean, this guy comes from the Lions passing game where Jared Goff had 5,000 yards. He's not going to have the same open passing playbook with Justin Fields. So in a way, his creativity might be a little bit limited there, but I do like the adaptability that he's shown. I like his ability to diagram run plays. And even the touchdown pass Martinez throw to Stone Smart, that little tight end screen, I thought that was a very creative play. For as creative as a tight end screen can be, I thought that there was something there with that. So I don't think we have something in terms of he's like finally the coordinator the Jets have been looking for 20 years. Finally the offensive coordinator that the Jets really need to see. But I think they at least have someone who's not going to be like a Hackett or a Todd Downing. That maybe he'll be maybe a little better than Mike LaFleur was, because we like Mike LaFleur, but he has some, he wasn't a perfect coordinator with the Jets. I think that's sort of the tier that we're hoping for, with better quarterback play than Zach Wilson. And if we get that with Aaron Glenn and this defense, I think that's more than fine in terms of building a culture that can win a bunch.
Yeah, the ceiling is very high with Tanner Engstrand. I think there were a lot of encouraging signs from that first game. Like you mentioned, Mike, the run game looked well executed, well designed. The screen to Stone Smart, as you mentioned, that was, I think it was a fake handoff to Braylon Allen, maybe, and then he made a good block, and it was really well executed downfield blocking. Newman, other guys. I think the ceiling is very high, and obviously, like you mentioned, there's differences with Engstrand coming from a Jared Goff-led passing attack in Detroit, versus Justin Fields. You just have to run a completely different offense. But I think with this pass-catching core, you're really going to see a kind of a committee approach, and it's going to be how much can Tanner Engstrand not only maximize what Justin Fields can do for this offense, but how much can we maximize role players? How much can we, get Stone Smart involved? How much can we get Tyler Johnson involved and play to their strengths? How much can we play to Aryan Smith's strengths? All of these players, like the Jets really have one starting caliber wide receiver in their wide receiver room. They have a rookie tight end starting. They have a collection of talented running backs, but Breece Hall is coming off a bad year, and we haven't seen Braylon Allen or Isaiah Davis be able to be consistent contributors at the NFL level yet. So there's a lot of unproven commodities in this Jets offense just in general. So it's going to be how much can we put all of these pieces together and again be greater than the sum of our parts. Can we get maybe not Josh Reynolds to produce at a wide receiver 2 level, but can we get Josh Reynolds, Aryan Smith, and Tyler Johnson combined to give us wide receiver 2 caliber production? Can we get guys like Stone Smart involved? Andrew Beck, can we get him involved in the offense? That's going to be the challenge that Tanner Engstrand faces in his first year with the Jets. And again, just one preseason game, I was very encouraged by how much they got different players involved, how much they were playing the different players' strengths in that game, and how well executed the offense just overall seemed. Again, one game, it's a caveat. They might come out on Saturday and completely stink it up. I don't know. But based on that one game, there's a lot to be encouraged about.
Let's talk about the roster, because there's been some moving and shaking based off that preseason game. I think there's some waves that have been made.
Yep.
Justin has put together an entire 53-man roster projection here.
I did it pretty quickly before the show.
And I like to here's what I want to know first. Based on this preseason game, is there anybody that you think would not have made the roster that has solidified themselves as a 53-man guy, or somebody that maybe played their way off the roster? Have there been any moving and shaking officially on that?
I don't think I would have had Tufele making my 53-man roster before this game. Now feels like it'd be, unless he completely stinks it up after this, it'd be tough to leave him off. I did, I don't want to skip around, but I did have the Jets carrying 5 defensive tackles, but that could change. I have them carrying Noddy on the 53 right now. I don't think he's a lock. I think there's definitely a real chance that Tufele just snatched his chain and he's going to be that other veteran D tackle, also pending the health of Byron Cowart. But that's somebody. Let's see. As I'm scrolling down now, I do have Brandon Smith making the 53.
Wow,
And
as the sixth receiver?
As the sixth receiver. And that largely is because of two things. It's because it's at the expense of Alan Lazard, who I don't have on my 53, but it's kind of a twofold thing where I don't know if he's going to be healthy. For week one. He's out with a shoulder injury. He's out with a shoulder injury. He was in a sling, and the initial prognosis was a couple of weeks, but we'll see if that holds true. Aaron Glenn is actually, I will say this, one of the best things about the Aaron Glenn era has been how transparent the Jets have been with injuries. And not only have they been transparent, they've been accurate, like extremely accurate with their diagnosis. It was
Mason Taylor had a lot of Aaron Boone, like, oh, he's coming back in a week, and then he's like dead and out for 2 months. There was a lot of that there.
The second Mason Taylor was hurt, it's like, oh, he has a high ankle sprain and he's out a week. Comes back like literally 7 days.
Back in a week. Thank you. All right.
In exactly a week. We know exactly what the injury is. We know when he's coming back, and it happens as they said. That is honestly, that is a lost art in the. Well, I'm going to say lost art because teams really didn't do that, but a lot of teams around the league don't have that kind of transparency.
Like, it's not gamesmanship to be like, I don't know, maybe he might be back. I don't know. Like, it's not even that. It's just like they didn't know.
Right. Especially at this time of the year. Like, it'd be silly to do that. But those are a couple of guys that I had it. I did have Beck on my 53, but I think that's like solidified now. I don't even know if he's on the bubble at this point.
Both Glenn and Engstrom have spoken at length about how, and I agree with this the more I think about it now, not to sound kind of old school, but the way the NFL works, sometimes they go really into something and they course correct. Like a lot of sports do. The NBA is going all in on threes, but now there's a movement to get the big guys back because everybody got too small. I think the NFL went so in on these passing offenses that now having a big offensive line, physically a big offensive line, and a running game and a fullback that you use as a blocker and a receiver, like that's almost a lost art. Like, I mean, Shanahan guys do that a lot. Like Kyle Juszczyk is getting all pros every single year because of that. But how many teams will use a fullback all the time as a core part of their offense? It's really falling off. So because of that, defenses are not really equipped to deal with that as well as they were 10 years ago.
Dude, we could do a whole podcast on the cyclical nature of NFL offenses and defenses and how cool it is. It's so fun. Football is so cool. But it's trended so far in the direction of let's get as many smaller, fast guys on the field so the defenses have to counter that to, okay, well now defense or offenses are going to realize, oh, the defenses are playing 5 DBs every possession. All right, let's load the box a little bit. Let's get 2 tight ends out there. Let's get a fullback out there. Let's get some big dudes on the field and just plow through them.
American football here.
Right. And it's
high formation, man.
It is going to course correct. And we've seen that a little bit. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a full course correct to, the late 90s, early 2000s, but I do think it will course correct. I do think you're going to see teams a lot more running 12 personnel, running, having a fullback out there as well. And I think the Jets are kind of going to be doing that a bit this year. We're going to see Andrew Beck a lot in that role. But, Mike, let's go position by position here. Because I do think for most of these positions, there's at least something to talk about. And especially that starts with the first one. Because quarterback is a really interesting position all of a sudden for the Jets. I do have them only carrying 2. But a lot of that, in fact, almost all of that, is dependent on the health of Tyrod Taylor. Right now, the Jets are saying that he's been dealing with the knee injury. He is not going to play in the preseason. The Jets are expecting him to be ready for week 1. That's the expectation. If that's the case, and it's not a significant injury, and they're just saying, all right, Tyrod, you're old, your bones are brittle, and we're just going to hold you out for the preseason because we don't want you exasperating anything, and we want to give more reps to Brady Cook and Adrian Martinez, then great. There's no reason to carry a third quarterback necessarily in the roster unless you have the space. But if the injury is more significant than we initially believe, and maybe he's not going to be 100% by week 1, then yeah, it probably makes sense to carry a QB3. I don't know that information. The only people that do are the Jets. So I'm going to operate under the assumption that Tyrod is fine for week 1, and I'm going to say they carry 2. But if not, yeah, I could absolutely see a scenario where the Jets carry a third quarterback on their roster. But I only have 2.
I would like to see, of the 2 personally, if they do end up keeping a third quarterback, which they might do, of Cook and Martinez, it seems to me like the momentum is leading towards it being Martinez.
Possibly.
Which he's been with the team before, 2024. As good of an athlete as Brady Cook was, 4.59 40-yard dash, I think Martinez is a better one. And quite honestly, I think Martinez just has the better arm. So for upside, it makes sense. I do find it funny, though, that I remember we discussed this earlier when we were talking about Armand Membu when they took him. we're like, yeah, he had a really good year. I don't really love Missouri's offense, like the way it's structured. And then they bring in Brady Cook, who's Missouri's quarterback, Membu's college quarterback. I'm like, I don't know, but yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. I'd be happy with either because I think Martinez does have more upside than most QB3s out there, but
sure.
I think that may just be a roster gymnastics thing at the end of the day.
I think there's upside to both of them. I think there's something there with Cook as well, and I would not be shocked that if whichever one of them doesn't make the Jets team, whether it's 53-man or practice squad, is scooped up by another team. I think both of them are going to be in the NFL this year in some capacity. I mean, there's always a chance the Jets keep both around, because you do have Justin Fields is probably more injury prone than your average quarterback because of the hits that he takes. He takes more sacks than your average quarterback, and he runs a lot. So he's going to be more injury prone than your average quarterback.
And the backup's injury prone.
Correct. And your backup is injury prone too. So I think there's absolutely a world where the Jets just keep both, possibly both on the practice squad, possibly one of them on the 53.
Now, for running backs, though, are you counting Beck as kind of like a tight end or a fullback with the backs?
I put Beck as tight end. He played more he played 3 snaps at fullback in that last game, 8 snaps at either tight end or slot receiver. Actually played 1 or 2 snaps in the slot. So I'm counting him as a tight end, but knowing that, yes, he will play fullback as well if he's on the roster, which I assume he will be. So for running backs, I do have 4. I do have them carrying Kenny Nwangwu yet, still. I don't know.
Just as the kick returner, though?
Just as a kick returner. Now, I don't think his roster spot is safe. I think he's very clearly the kick returner on the roster with the most juice, but he doesn't offer much as a running back. And, a guy that we could talk about who had a really impressive showing on Saturday, Donovan Edwards. I think Donovan Edwards is going to be in the NFL this season, much like I just said about Brady Cook and Adrian Martinez. I think Donovan Edwards will be on a team. I think there's a very decent chance he's on a 53-man roster. I think if he doesn't make the Jets team, there's a very solid chance that he's picked up by another team. And I mean, look at that 49ers running back room right now, like what they're working with. You're telling me Donovan Edwards wouldn't be able to carve out a role there? Like, everyone's
watching him at Michigan, which last year was weird because Khalil Mullings came in and took some of his carries, but I was not super high on him. I just didn't love the lack of juice that he had, but I'm like, all right, he's not that bad. He's not as bad as he was last year. I don't know if it was the timeshare or if he was dealing with an injury or something, but 2023 Edwards is a draftable player and an NFL player.
Absolutely.
If that's what the Jets got, then yeah, he might stick around.
He was probably the most high-profile undrafted running back.
I mean, he was on the cover of the college football game, for crying out loud. That's how high profile he was.
He was expected to be a day 3, like a later day 3 pick. I think it was a bit of a surprise.
And again, so was Quinn Ewers, and we saw what happened with him.
Yeah, he's somehow looking just as bad, if not worse, than Zach Wilson, which is that is an accomplishment because Wilson has looked very bad. But yeah, I look, and I'll say this about Donovan Edwards too. Jets were giving him punt returner reps in practice today. I don't know how much they've been doing that. This is the first time that I've heard that they've been doing that, but that tells me they were impressed by him on Saturday and they want to find a way to try and sneak him onto this roster. Maybe he does. I mean, hell, man, there's a world where maybe him and Nwangwu both make it, which would be kind of crazy, but maybe Nwangwu is the kick returner, Edwards is the punt returner, and also RB4. I think in that scenario, they'd be more likely to just keep Edwards as the punt returner and maybe they keep Gibson as the kick returner, something like that, because
Glenn does seem like a very merit-based guy, and based on merit, Donovan Edwards has earned a roster spot.
Right. So I think there's a world where he still makes it. I don't have him on my 53 man, but again, there's still two more preseason games. There's still plenty of time for things to change. Obviously, injuries can happen as well, but Breece, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis are safe. I know there's been some Breece Hall trade talk. I don't expect that.
A lot of Cowboys fans, I've heard.
Yeah, I don't expect them to trade him before week 1. If they're trading him, it's before the deadline. It's a lot closer to that. And I wouldn't expect that to happen before week 1.
So who are the 6 receivers that you had? Garrett Wilson.
So the 6 receivers
Smith
I got
alluded to earlier.
I think there's 4 guys that are locks, like that are definitive locks at this point. Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds. I think Tyler Johnson has cemented himself as a lock. He was running with the first team offense in the preseason game. He's been running with the first team offense a lot this summer.
Which is concerning, but whatever.
I like Tyler Johnson. I think he's a strong candidate for someone who will exceed expectations this year. That's my take on him. But and then Aryan Smith obviously is also a lock. That leaves what I think is going to be 2 roster spots available. One of them could be Allen Lazard. Depends on his health. I think the Jets very clearly they made it. One of my takeaways as well from the preseason game was, I don't know if you noticed this or picked up on it, but almost every time when Allen Lazard was in the game, the Jets ran the ball. Now, obviously, I don't know if they'd want to make that obvious during the season, but it's very clear what role they envision for him in their offense if he's on the team. He's there to block. Sure, he's a fine veteran receiver he's been around, like terrible drop issues, but he's capable in that area. I don't think they're particularly impressed by him as a receiver. He has not made much noise this summer as a receiver, but they love his blocking. And to his credit,
plus it just seems like another vestige of Rodgers. They're just like, all right, like what do we gain from giving him wide receiver 2 snaps?
Well, I do think that like he has value in that role. He is the best blocking receiver on this team. I don't think that's a debate. And he impressed in that game. Like we mentioned that Braylon Allen run where Allen Lazard was in motion and he sealed off the edge really well. He has a knack for being in the right place at the right time with blocking, and his technique is
because he's
good.
so big too.
He is. He's got a long wingspan. He's a big dude. Like he's an excellent blocker. I don't have him making the 53-man roster. Now, I think part of that could be because of his health. He's dealing with the shoulder injury. He was in a sling after the game. And, like we mentioned before, it's supposed to be a 2-week injury. We'll see if that's the case. And we'll see, I could see a scenario. I think somebody mentioned it in chat where maybe they put Lazard on the PUP to start the year, which technically would mean he has to be on the 53 to start the year. So I'll say this as well. You're going to likely see some roster gymnastics. I think it was Brian mentioned it. Yeah, Brian says Beck doesn't have to be on the 53-man roster. I have Beck on my 53. I will almost bet money that he is not on the initial 53 because unlike other guys on this, that we're going to talk about that are on the bubble, he can just be cut and he doesn't have to clear waivers. So I think we're going to see a scenario with him where he's released, they put someone on an injured list, and then he comes back. So preemptively, weeks in advance now, don't freak out, Jets fans, when Andrew Beck is probably cut as part of roster cuts. I do think he'll be back. I don't think it's going to mean anything. But yeah, I have Brandon Smith making it over Allen Lazard. I think that Brandon Smith, this is a golden opportunity for him with Lazard out. Brandon Smith was running with the ones in practice today at Giants practice. He was, he was working with the first team offense a lot, basically filling that Allen Lazard role. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. Is the Jets are giving Smith every opportunity to prove he can be that Allen Lazard. He can fill that role not only as a capable, big-bodied receiver, but as somebody who's a good blocker. And I think the ceiling is there with Smith. He's a big dude, just like Allen Lazard. He's a physical receiver. He can be a good run blocker. If he can prove that he can do that, I see no reason why he shouldn't make the team over Allen Lazard. And then that last spot, I do have it as Xavier Gibson right now. I think there's every world where Jamal Pritchett beats him out. I think he just needs to do a little bit more in games. But also Gibson has been dealing with an injury. So we'll see. I think he's back now. He should be playing this Saturday. These last 2 preseason games are probably going to determine which of those guys gets that spot.
One very notable omission.
No Malachi Corley. It's at the point where I don't even I'm
like you're not even taking Malachi Corley as a possible.
I think Quentin Skinner has a better chance of making this football team than Malachi Corley. I don't think Corley has any.
How was everybody this wrong on him? And it wasn't just the Jets. I mean, a lot of guys around the league like Malachi Corley.
Yeah. We're just reading the tea leaves at this point. He's running solely with the third team offense. He worked with the third team offense in the preseason.
And he was struggling there. He was fumbling in practice and stuff.
Yeah. And he caught up. He had a couple of okay moments in the preseason. I don't think he was bad in that game necessarily, but all the other receivers, I think, competing with him flashed more, including, like I mentioned, undrafted Quentin Skinner, who I think the Jets will try and keep him around the practice squad. I don't think Corley, barring multiple wide receiver injuries, I don't think Corley has a shot to make the roster. I think he's done.
JJ, is this the worst wide receiver core in the NFL? Them and the Browns, I think, are.
I think they're better than the Browns because Garrett is just a lot better than Jerry Jeudy's fine, but Garrett carries hard. There might be others that are not. I mean,
I'm trying to go down the list.
The Bills isn't very good.
Bills is better than Khalil Shakir with.
It depends on how much you weight
Josh Palmer. Yeah,
it depends how much you weight Garrett Wilson because the Bills have 2 wide receivers who I think are very good, are rock solid wide receiver 2s at worst, which is Khalil Shakir and Josh Palmer. Keon Coleman, we'll see. He was encouraging. There were some encouraging things as a rookie, but we'll see. I think you could put the Bills in that conversation.
If Terry McLaurin doesn't play, Washington might be up there.
Yes. Debo Samuel, wide receiver 1 in 2020.
Fat Debo and Luke McCaffrey.
Yes. Definitely that. There's probably a couple. Jets definitely one of the worst, for sure. Absolutely. Which is, again, why I said it's a committee approach. You got to be greater than the sum of your parts. That's going to be the goal for the wide receiver.
That's also why the tight end room will be very important, Justin.
Yes, it will. And we'll transit. Oh, yeah, as JJ said, Patriots maybe as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Patriots have 8 or 9 guys I think could make an NFL roster, but if Diggs isn't back fully healthy,
Which,
it's going to get really tired.
And even still, what's Diggs fully healthy look like in 2025?
At least Kyle Williams looks okay.
Yeah, he looks good. Javon Baker, not so much. Tight end
or Polk. Yeah.
Or Jalen Polk has been really bad.
You talk about whiffing on Corley. I mean, he was
second round. He was second round. Polk.
High second round.
Yeah. Tight end room. I got 4 making it, but that's including Beck. I did strongly consider leaving Jeremy Ruckert off because I think few players on the roster have seen their stock fall more than Jeremy Ruckert has this summer.
Not even the Ohio State connections are saving him.
It's not. Every tight end on the Jets roster who played in Saturday's game caught a pass except for Jeremy Ruckert. Jeremy Ruckert also finished with a 30-something PFF pass block rate and like a 50 run block rate in that game.
But he was billed as the blocking tight end
for a guy who is considered
right.
For a guy who's supposed to be the blocking tight end on this team, again, we shouldn't be shocked. He had, I think he ranked 72nd out of 74 qualified tight ends in PFF run block grade last year. He can't do it. And like, I hate saying that. And I hate, I'll say this. I hate being overly critical of him because I know he's
from Long Island.
He's from Long Island. I played against the dude in high school. I know his dad seems like a cool dude and he's all over social media. And it probably fucking sucks to see everyone shitting on Jeremy Ruckert. That probably sucks. And I feel for him in that regard.
As JJ says really quick, just subbed and hit the bell. First time seeing the show. You guys do a great job. Hell yeah, JJ.
Buddy. Much appreciated.
Thanks for joining. We hope to see you more times.
Definitely. We were streaming a little earlier than usual this week, but much appreciated, buddy. But yeah, I feel bad, but at the same time, he's an NFL player. He's a professional. This is his job. And I don't think he's better than 3 other tight ends on the roster, for including Andrew Beck. I think this is a position to watch for if the Jets are making any kind of waiver wire pickups. This could be a position that they address. If some blocking tight end around the league is cut, I'd have to take a look at rosters and see who possibly could be a candidate there. But, I think this is a position they could look to address. Now, maybe they just view Andrew Beck as that guy, as their like blocking tight end, as their tight end too. I think the role they have envisioned for him is a little bit more diverse than that, though. And I think they're going to try and get him involved in other ways. That's not just as your inline blocking tight end too. So I think that's why they might add another tight end there. But
Stone Smart baffles me though too. Either because Allen Lazard and Stone Smart are like the same size.
Yeah,
it's physical. So like it's basically like carrying a 7th wide receiver if you keep Smart.
Yeah, in some ways, I think he can play in line a little, but obviously that's not going to be his role. If you Stone Smart's on this roster, which I expect he will be, it'll be 1 because he can contribute a little bit on special teams, and 2 because you plan to get him involved as a receiver, as a receiving threat, like we just saw in Saturday's preseason game where they threw him that screen pass. I think that's going to be the way to get him involved. But you're absolutely correct. Like I think he's just another guy that is going to be mixed in that pass catching core. And if we're looking at, like, again, the bottom of the roster receivers, like whether it's Xavier Gibson or Jamal Pritchett, I'm not expecting whoever that is, if one of those guys gets a spot, to have a big role on offense. So you could see guys like Stone Smart, probably mixing in more as receivers, especially if whether it's Brandon Smith or Allen Lazard, one of those guys, they're probably not going to be active on game days because neither of those guys contributes on special teams. So you might just go in with 4 wide receivers plus your punt returner. You might need to get a guy like Stone Smart more involved in, as an actual receiver. But yeah, those are the 4 that I have. I don't think the only thing that I think would change there is Ruckert not making it and then replacing him with somebody else in the waiver wire, unless they want to just carry 3, which is also possible. I just think Beck isn't like a full-time true tight end. So that would be, I don't think they're going to do that. That's what I got though.
So the offensive line, I want to get to a quote from earlier from Rob Serafenowicz because I think this illustrates a good point. Membu playing well is a good sign, and it's nice to see the Jets have a top 10 pick not named Wilson or Sauce playing like a top 10 pick. People have understated just how important Membu will be to this team and how good a position the Jets O-line will be and if he lives up to his draft status.
Yeah.
And the starting 5 is set.
Well,
unless you talk to Aaron Glenn.
We don't know that. Josh Myers was the first team center today.
Let's say the starting 6, I think, might be.
Sure. The top 6 O-line.
Which is funny, the starting center, because Tippmann was much better last year, was better in camp,
He's been better every step of his career. It doesn't make any sense.
Again, if they want to replace John Simpson at the end of the year and put Tippmann at left guard, fine, but not like this.
Yeah, but yeah, the top 6 is set. I didn't have any changes to my offensive line. I will say one sneaky. I'll give you
the backups again are probably Okorofor.
Yeah, for the 4, I have them carrying 9. So the starting 5 plus Josh Myers, and then the other 3 backups: Xavier Newman, Chukwuma Okorafor, and Max Mitchell. That's the 9 I had the Jets
over
carrying.
Carter Warren.
Yeah, well, Carter Warren ran with the 3rd team. Max Mitchell ran with the 2nd team. That's basically what I'm basing it off of, which was already what I expected. Mitchell's been working ahead of Warren in camp. I will say that the one very underrated possible issue for the Jets this year is their backup tackles suck. They're bad. They're very bad. Okorafor,
who has great backup tackles?
I know, but Max Mitchell is probably going to step in at left tackle if Olu misses any time, and that's bad, Mike. That's bad.
Especially with Justin Fields.
Maybe they dude. Oh my God. Maybe they'd put Okorafor there, but that's also bad. Okorafor, as we've seen, cannot play.
He might quit in the middle of the game.
Right? If he
did that.
They don't have a backup left tackle on this roster. So maybe amongst any player on this team, I think the health of Olu is probably the most important, even more so than Memu. I try Okorafor at filling in at right tackle. I think would be fine. That's perfectly fine.
Not for a full year, but for a game or two.
Right.
Yeah.
Okorafor or Mitchell playing left tackle, that's disastrous. But yeah, I don't think there's anybody on the roster that's going to be a better option. It may be Carter Warren, but I much like Malachi Corley. I think Warren.
Just chalk it up as a miss.
I think they're done. It sucks for guys like Warren and Mitchell who their development was stunted by a terrible offensive coaching staff and a terrible offensive line coach. And so it's at this point now, it's like we're kind of a few years into development. They're becoming who they are as players, and there's less to work with, especially with Mitchell. He's been here this is his 4th year now, I think. He was drafted, 2021, 2022. And he's probably going to play out his whole rookie year with the Jets.
I swear Cameron Clark would have been good if he didn't have all those.
I wish, man. I was a big Cameron Clark fan. It's a shame. But yeah, that's kind of how I have it looking at. I don't think there's anybody else that I'm looking at this roster that really can make a push. Shout out a couple of guys who had good preseason games. Marquise Hayes was a former Oklahoma standout. Samuel Jackson, not that one. He had like a 90-something PFF pass block rate, but a horrific run.
And he starred in the Avengers, the new Avengers movie. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yes, Cole Levios kicking around he's still in the mix. I'm mad, Mike.
Checks.
You know why I'm mad? Because every healthy player on the Jets roster played in Saturday's preseason game except for one player, and that was Leander Weigand. And I feel like we were robbed of seeing the German phenom.
Austrian Jet fan, our European benefactor overseas.
Right. He's probably hyped for him. We've been robbed. We need to see Leander Weigand play. I mean, granted, if they're not even playing him in a preseason, I shudder to
That's not a good sign.
I shudder to think of how bad he might be.
Before we get on to the defense, one other quote from JJ. Simpson was really good last year. I think of signing him long-term if he has another good season. I would too. Doesn't seem like the Jets do, because why else are they screwing around with Pittman?
Well, it's totally possible. Remember, Vera Tucker's also a free agent at the end of the year. So, again, there is a world where they
both. So.
You can keep both, because the Jets do have the luxury right now of having both of their tackles on rookie contracts. Their center is also on a rookie contract, although that's you're going to have to extend Tittman sooner than the other guys as Speed Racer races past your house.
I tried to mute my mic. Yeah. Before we were working too, I heard a guy peel out. It was like a movie and then there were tire tracks.
You live by a racetrack, apparently.
Yeah, well, for new, my apartment is literally directly next to a highway.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you get a lot of.
You actually live right next to the Indy. Where's the Indy 500? Is that just what is this track called? Is it happening again?
Did you just say where the Indy? Where's
no?
The
Obviously, it's Indianapolis. Mike, okay. I mean the track. What is the track?
Okay.
I know it's Indianapolis.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember the name of the track. Yeah.
That's what my question was. Okay, you're at Watkins Glen or some shit. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember the name of the track. I'm sorry, but for that hit me, I'm like, Justin, please.
No. Who do you think I am? What do you think I'm doing here? Right? What do you think I am? But no, I think there's a world where they extend both. JJ said, I'd rather extend Simpson over ABT because of health concerns. It's risky. Depends on what happens this year. If ABT is healthy again, then I'm not really concerned too much about the injury stuff. He had the torn Achilles and he had the torn pectoral or torn triceps, I think it was. 2 completely unrelated freak accidents. If he has another major injury, then it's like, all right, now we have to really start considering this. But generally, unless it's a recurring injury, I'm not as concerned about that. It's not a Mekhi Becton situation where it's like, oh, this guy's knees are toast. It's different with ABT. But yeah, it's going to depend a lot of what happens this year. Brian says, do you know where the New York Jets play? I do.
No,
do.
it's
They play
always
in New
funny.
York.
Do you remember Kevin King, the old cornerback?
Yeah, the Packers guy.
I believe the Jets didn't draft him, or they took him because he thought they played in New York. Like he didn't know they played in New Jersey.
And that's why they didn't draft him?
I think he said that's why.
I
Or
feel
maybe
like
he said, I think they didn't draft me because of that.
Okay. I feel like that, yeah. I feel like that's definitely not why
That
they didn't
it
draft him,
influenced something where he didn't know they played in New Jersey.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I get it. They're called New York. I get why people who don't pay close attention would know that.
No, you gotta know. You gotta know.
That happens a lot in sports. Like the LA Angels playing Anaheim. The Bills don't even play in Buffalo.
Anaheim's basically LA.
The Bills playing Orchard. East Rutherford is
that's a different state, though. Yeah.
It's kind of basically New York.
So moving on to the defense. This is one where there's so many different combinations that I could look at that people suggest, and I'd say, you know what, that makes sense as a defensive line thing. But my immutables, which are not getting cut, I think obviously McDonald, Johnson, they're in. Williams, they're in. Cowart, they're in. So that's 4. Barron, 5. Regrettably, I think Michael Clemens, 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think no matter what happens, Leonard Taylor is going to be on the 53-man roster. I think that was true before the preseason, and I think that's true after this game.
Okay.
After that, I think probably Tufele. And then those are the 8 that are for sure. That's as low as you can go. I don't think they keep 10 like they did with Salah, but I think those 8 are pretty set. Nadi might be 9. I think that's the big decision point.
I have 10.
Really?
I do have 10. I think there's enough names that are intriguing enough, but the one that I'm like, if I were to cut one of these, probably the last guy I put on this list is Derek Nadi. That's probably the last guy that I have on there. I think there's a world where they just carry 4 D tackles.
That's because he came in. I'm not trying to act like Derek Nadi is Aaron Donald here, but it was assumed that he would be the starting defensive tackle when they signed him.
He was the least jag of all the Jags that they signed at D tackle. Like that, he at least had been a starter for like 7 years with the Chiefs. Like he
couple championships. You're like a perfect guy.
Cowart, not so much. Tufele, not so much. But Nadi's not really done anything to distinguish himself this summer. And while Cowart had emerged as the obvious D tackle 2 next to Quinnen, he's hurt right now. So I will say Cowart's probably a lock for the 53, but again, pending his health, I don't know how bad I think it was an ankle injury. I don't know how bad that is, but yeah, Nadi right now I think is firmly on the bubble, and I was considering the one guy I would actually consider maybe putting in ahead of him. I was considering Jamarcus Weston, which that's somebody who I think he impressed me on Saturday. And his path is going to be through special teams. For those who don't know, Jamarcus Weston, undrafted rookie out of Florida, played all over.
Wide receiver, punt gunner, defensive end, everything.
Started at wide receiver, played some corner, played safety, played linebacker, played end. Actually, I don't know if he played corner, but he played safety, played linebacker, played end. Really, he was just a special teamer. It's rare to see a guy who plays at, especially a high-level school like Florida, be basically just a special teamer for, I think it was 5 years he spent in Florida. But that's what he was. And somehow, not only did he get an NFL contract out of it, he was, I believe, had the second highest guarantees of any undrafted player that the Jets signed this summer or this spring. So clearly they have, some kind of a vision for him. And I think he definitely made a mark on Saturday. He recovered a muff punt. He had the second highest graded, PFF special teams grade on the team behind someone. I forget who it was. Oh, behind Quantes. Behind Quantes.
Name later.
I think he has a real path to the roster. I just don't think he's going to contribute. Well, first of all, the Jets list him as an end. He was playing linebacker in that game. When he was out there, he was playing linebacker. So I don't even think we should be discussing him with the D-line necessarily. I think he's more going to be looked at as a linebacker.
He's a football player is what he is, just
pretty much. He's a special teamer. But I have them. So for context, I have them keeping at defensive end, Jermaine, Will McDonald. I do have Michael Clemens. I don't think Clemens is a lock, but I just think based on where he's been running in practice, based on the experience level he has, he's probably going to make it. I would have loved to see Eric Watts push him for that role. And I think if Watts has had a strong summer, which is still time, I think Watts had a chance to take over for that role because Watts has been running with like the second.
I think he had the lowest PFF grade of anyone in that game, right?
I believe that's true. Yeah. Yes. So he just needs a stronger summer. But Watts, I didn't have on this list. I think there's a real chance he does make it. Clemens, Tyler Barron, and then I had Rashad Weaver making it. That was the other guy we haven't talked about. Weaver, there's something there with him. He had 5.5 sacks a few years ago with Tennessee. He has not had a sack since then, but had some moments in
Attitude
spring.
problems too, from what I've heard.
Right. Had some moments in the summer. I think that's like your Tack McKinley flyer reclamation project. Let's see what we got in this guy. If he just doesn't do anything the rest of the summer, then he probably loses his roster spot. But if I was predicting right now, I'd put him on the team. And then D tackle, Quinnen, Cowart. I do have Noddy, Tufele, and Leonard Taylor. I don't think Leonard Taylor is a lock, and I don't think he was going into the preseason, but he showed up on Saturday. I'll tell you that. He's someone who he's kind of had a quiet summer. I think a lot of Jets fans are really hoping for that leap from him to be
because the pedigree too, like the top recruit and all that.
To be that D tackle 3, to be that guy. But also, if we remember a little bit, he didn't flash as much in camp last year. He flashed a lot in the preseason. So he might just be one of those guys that when the lights are on and games start, that's when he turns it up. So, we saw that on Saturday. I think if he has another preseason performance like that, yeah, he's probably close to a lock for the 53.
JJ, I'm jealous of the Giants D-line. What a beast. And they're jealous of our cornerback room. So
yeah, I know. Well, that was the Jets D-line, man. It was. It was at one point. Look, they still have 3 really good players. Then it falls off big time. But they still have 3 really good players.
So linebacker and cornerback. That's who we got left.
And safety.
Well, a defensive back, I should say.
Yeah. Linebacker, I have them carrying 5. Kind of the same 5 that I had going in, but the one change would be who's starting. Quincy and Jamin Sherwood, obviously the 2 starters in the nickel.
Yes.
Jamin Davis looks like he is that 3rd linebacker, which the assumption was it was going to be Marcelino McCrary-Ball going into that game. And I know some Jets fans will scoff and be like, what? Who cares? Why is this even a conversation? Like, the guy's barely going to play. I think the 3rd linebacker role is going to play a lot more than Jets fans realize. It didn't play a ton last year. It was Chaz Surratt for part of the year with Sam McGuavin. It actually was Sherwood early in the year when Mosley was still healthy and alive. No, he's still alive, but when he's just retired.
Poor guy, man. You're already.
Shout out CJ Mosley, man.
A guy who went through a lot of crap and never complained and worked hard and was good, and that's what you want from a veteran Jet.
But look at that Lions defense from last year. If Aaron Glenn's gonna, I know it's Steve Wilkes' defense this year, but Glenn is gonna have a lot of influence. And if they're running it any similar to how they did that Lions defense last year, they ran three linebackers a lot. There were a lot of linebackers in that team that played a good amount of snaps for Detroit. Now, part of that was because Alex Anzalone missed some time with an injury, but they did use 3.
Everybody missed some time with injury last year.
I know. But
what if there's a correlation, Glenn and Jets?
Let's hope not. But they're going to use 3 linebackers a lot. And we saw that in that first game. Jamin Davis was running with the first team defense, and he was playing a good amount of snaps. Jamin Davis is someone that's really interesting to me because he was drafted 1st round by Washington. Some people, kind of thought he was a little overdrafted, but he was never really
overdrafted.
He was never really put in a position that I think was best for him. He is at his best as an athletic weak side linebacker, which is the role the Jets will be using him in. Washington drafted him and basically immediately played him as a Mike, and he was just not big enough, not physical enough.
They had him playing edge by the end of it.
They had him at Mike. He failed miserably, did not do well. They did play him a little bit of weak side linebacker later in his career before Dan Quinn took over, and he was doing better. And then Dan Quinn comes in and he's like, actually, now you're a pass rusher. Now you're a defensive end. Not only are you like an edge rusher, you are a hand in the dirt.
You're my Micah Parsons.
End. Right, which it didn't work. He was cut midway through this first year with Dan Quinn and bounced around last year with Green Bay, with Minnesota. The Jets picked him up. Funnily enough, if Jamin Davis becomes a piece for this Jets team, shout out Phil Savage, because that was one of the only moves he made as interim general manager was claiming Jamin Davis off waivers late in December.
I was skeptical at first because I'm sure you've seen this tweet going around, but I think it rings true. Anytime you sign a guy and the little tweet notification says he's a former 1st-round pick, that usually means he's ass.
Yeah.
And that happened with Jamin Davis. So
I think Jamin Davis is in a position now where it's his best role for him. And I will say this too. I think he agrees, because I put out a tweet about that where it's like, I think this is the best role for him, and he's not been used correctly. And then he liked it. So I think he agrees. But I do think there's a world where he's playing a big role for this Jets team. I have him as linebacker 3, and then the other 2, Francisco Maligoa. I don't think he's even in the competition there. I think it's really Davis versus McCrary-Ball. I think they view
weird. I don't see why Maligoa can't be the 4th as a rookie.
I think it's because they view him as their backup Mike. That's why. I don't think they view him as a weak side linebacker. I think if Sherwood were to miss time, I think Maligoa steps in there as your backup Mike. I don't think it'd be Davis. I think it would be Maligoa. That's my guess based just on how they've used them. And then McCrary-Ball, I think McCrary-Ball has had a really good summer. And again, going in the last preseason game, I would have said he's the favorite to start at linebacker 3. I don't think he's a lock by any means at this point, because I think if Davis is the starting weak side linebacker, then McCrary Ball's path is really through special teams, which he was a big-time special teams contributor last year. But again, keep an eye on Jamarcus Weston. I think Weston, if there's anybody Weston's pushing for a spot, it's probably McCrary Ball at this point. But that's my linebacker room.
And the defensive backfield, which some consider the strength of the team.
Corner?
The starters are pretty much set in stone. I know there's some like, oh, maybe Tony Adams could get pushed out, but Adams is probably going to be a week 1 starter. Same with Andre Sisco. And then Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter, Sauce Gardner. Those are your 5 starters. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I mean, the Stevens contract, some people have a problem with, but Brandon Stevens is going to start week 1 at cornerback.
He's had a good summer too. Shout out Stevens. Had a good summer.
Yeah, he did. Maybe he is getting better. That would be great. Then you got 7 because that's the 2 rookies, is Aryan Thomas, who I really want to see on the field and be good. I just don't see an opportunity right now, but I think he'll be good. And Malachi Moore, who has just been getting all sorts of effusive praise from Aaron Glenn for really playing well. And he's one of those guys, like, time him whatever you want, not the biggest guy, but, like, dude just makes plays. That's what I liked about Malachi Moore when he was coming out of Alabama. So those 7 I feel like are locked in. And then beyond that, I think it's a lot of special teamers. Who's going to be the dime cornerback? A lot of those kind of debates.
Yeah, I have them carrying 10 DBs altogether. 5 corners, 5 safeties. But it really, like, that's just a, what do you call them? Because Malachi Moore and Isaiah Oliver, I have them listed at safeties. They're also your backup nickels. And I think we saw that on Saturday. More specifically, I think they view as their backup nickel over Isaiah Oliver. At least if we're just basing it off of Saturday's game, Oliver was playing safety in that game. Malachi Moore was running with the second team defense as the nickel corner. So
JJ says Stevens is guarding Lazard and Reynolds. I'm not taking much from that.
It's fair.
But if he was getting if he was getting beat though, you take that seriously.
The Jets did post something. I got to find the exact caption they posted where it was like, Brandon Stevens knocking away a pass. Yeah, was Brandon Stevens breaking up a pass. Seen that movie before, and I'm like,
no, I haven't. That's the entire reason we didn't like that.
If Ravens fans saw that tweet, bro, it's actually no, that was the biggest issue with him in Baltimore.
Was that he couldn't break up passes because he would turn his head around.
I don't think whoever's running the Jets Twitter, like social media, realizes that. But yeah, I have 5 corners: Sauce, Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter, Azareye'h Thomas, Quantez Stiggers. The caveat there is I don't know about Azareye'h Thomas's health. I believe he's still out. I don't think he's practicing still. He had a shoulder injury. He didn't play in Saturday's preseason opener. I don't think he's returned unless I missed that. So that's something to keep an eye on. Either way, I think Stiggers is probably your dime corner going into the year. I don't know if Jets fans are going to – I don't know how they're going to react to it, but I would very much expect and prepare for some Azareye'h Thomas DNPs to start the year. I think he's going to be a healthy scratch for probably the early portion of the year. I don't think he's going to be one of their top DB contributors on special teams. And if Stiggers is the 4th DB or 4th corner, which not only is he that, it looks like he's probably going to be one of your starting gunners as well.
Yes.
I don't see a path to a game day roster spots for Azareye'h Thomas unless one of Stevens or Gardner is hurt, or Stiggers, I guess, for that matter.
Which is upsetting, but
it's a little upsetting, but he's been slowed down this summer by an injury. I don't think he was really standing out before that either. So kind of a slow start to him for his Jets career. It doesn't mean, anything necessarily definitive long-term, but something to keep an eye on. And then at safety, again, I included Isaiah Oliver and Malachi Moore as safety, as they're also corners. And then the other 3, Andre Sisco, Tony Adams. And I do have them keeping Jarius Monroe, who weirdly was also playing corner in that game. I would love to look.
They're very fluid with those safety corner designations on this team.
I want to see, because unless I'm wrong, I think he was playing outside corner, Jarius Monroe. He absolutely was. He, in fact, only played outside corner in that game. All of his snaps came at outside corner. So that's something to keep an eye on, especially if we're talking about, hey, Oliver and Malachi Moore are your 2 backup nickels. Well, who are your backup outside corners? If Sauce and Brandon Stevens both go down, what are you doing at corner, right? Like
maybe
you got
Thomas and Oliver, and then they kick someone else in.
Well, it would be Stiggers and Thomas, and then you need another outside corner. Jarius Monroe, weirdly, despite being listed as a safety, I think is that guy. I don't think there's another outside. I mean, Jarek Bernard-Converse would also be in that conversation as well, and we can talk about him too. He just unfortunately missed Saturday's game because of an injury. I think he's going to be back.
But yeah, that's Sternbeck says too. We went through this with Eccles over Hall's backup cornerback. Yeah, but the Thomas thing, I think, is just because of the draft status too. Like they got to find a way at some point to get him on the field.
They will. He's going to have to contribute on special teams, and I'm not sure he can do that right now.
He's never that fast. I mean,
he's not really the special teams type. Like Stiggers is absolutely more of a special teams type corner,
totally.
As was Eccles, and it's kind of like Bryce Hall. Bryce Hall is also not necessarily, at least post ankle injury, where he kind of lost some of that explosiveness. He's not really the special teams type. But yeah, that's what I have. And then the specialists: Nick Folk, Austin McNamara, Thomas Hennessy. I don't think there's any real surprises there. Harrison Mevis is still in camp. He was perfect today, so good for him. But I really think he's just kind of more of a camp leg at this point to keep Nick Folk fresh. Folk's 40 whatever years old. That's the 53 I got. I don't think there's many surprises. Oh, another guy, Chris Boyd. He's also in the mix to be, special teams guy. They signed him in the offseason.
Wasn't he the guy that shoved the coach over, though?
He is. That was D'Amico Ryans, right? Or maybe it was one of the assistants in Houston.
It was the assistant or something, yeah.
Yes, that was Chris Boyd. The Jets signed him as one of their pretty early free agent signings, I believe. He's basically a core special teamer, but he's a little bit more of a corner than a Justin Hardy. He actually has played corner in his career as opposed to Hardy, who's not really anything other than special teams. He's just hurt right now, and I believe he's still out with a shoulder injury. I think he's a strong candidate to probably start the year on the PUP, which means maybe he has to make the roster too, and then do some roster gymnastics where a Beck gets cut, or maybe Derek Notty's cut and then he's brought back. Some guys who are vested vets who don't have to clear waivers. Any thoughts?
I think that's enough to call time on this episode of the Jet Press podcast.
Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts on the 53?
Anything? I mean, a lot of it seems pretty set in stone already. I don't think there's anybody that really. The only guy I thought could have had starting potential that might get cut is Notty, and then Lazard maybe, but we kind of saw that's been coming for years now, and it's just finally official. It's going to happen soon. I mean, they signed him, and then in week 6 of the first year, sounds like, we got him for another year and a half after a 4-year deal. I'm like, okay.
I still think there's a chance he's on the team. He does offer something,
but not because of his own,
No, it would be because of his blocking. That would be why. If Brandon Smith proves that he can be 80% of the blocker that Lazard is, while also obviously being, I think, a better receiver at this stage, then they'll keep Smith. But if not, they probably stick with Lazard. One more thing. JD says carrying 2 QBs with Fields and Tyrod would be very risky. It would. And the more I'm thinking about it now, the more I think the Jets are going to keep all 4 quarterbacks around in some capacity. Whether that means both Martinez and Cook on the practice squad or one of them on the 53, I think they probably keep all 4 quarterbacks on the team in some way. Obviously, if they cut Cook and Martinez, they both have to clear waivers, but I think that shouldn't be a problem. Because with quarterbacks, it's rare to see them get claimed because a team would have to sign them to their 53, to claim them.
The biggest Eeyore, also known as Nick Ginsburg here. Great work, but what's the point? Nothing to talk about until Fields can show he can pass the ball. Otherwise, we'll suck again.
Nick, if your expectations are the Jets are going to win 12 games this year, and anything other than that,
that's your fault.
Then that's your fault. I'm going into this year knowing the Jets are probably not going to be a very good football team. But
I think Fields will be okay. But
right? It's still fun to talk about this team, and it's still fun to look ahead to the future and see what building blocks could be there for when they're hopefully good in the future. That's all we can do, man. But
when they're good, find us here on the Jet Press Podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there, and on YouTube. You can subscribe, hit that little bell, like the stream. All that helps. Take us home, Mr. Fried.
Yes, sir, man. I'm excited for Saturday. I'm excited for more preseason. This is my favorite time of the year. I don't know. Maybe that just means it's because I'm a Jets fan, and this is when there's the most optimism and the least pessimism. But I just love all the roster gymnastic stuff. I love looking at the back of the roster guys. I love looking at the spring league dudes trying to make it. It's really fun for me. So these next 2 weeks, let's enjoy them before the season starts. But anyway, until then, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at @Luciano. Follow me on Twitter, Justin T. Fried. Follow the Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also become a member today. It is only 99 cents. You get your comments prioritized in chat. And it's just a really great way to help support the show. We appreciate anybody that tunes in. We normally stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Fried. That is Mike Luciano. We'll see you guys next time.
See you next Wednesday, guys.